Righty, well, welcome everyone again. Yes, somebody asked in the question. So we are a pre-med organization, but we have non-pre-med. Some of the speakers are non-pre-med and doing other majors. So this is open for everyone and anyone. So we're great that you're able to join us today. And we'll get started by each speaker introducing themselves, and we'll start with Sebastian.
Awesome. Well, hi there, everybody. My name is Sebastian Pintea. I'm a junior at Stanford. I'm studying environmental systems engineering and Spanish on the pre-med track. And in the future, I hope to be a physician in academic medicine. And then I guess my favorite food would probably have to be sushi.
Carla, do you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. I'm a junior at Stanford. I just transferred this academic year from a community college. My major is anthropology, so I am not pre-med. Also, my favorite food is probably sushi as well. And I hope to be a professor one day, a writer, and potentially run for office.
All right, Linus.
So with that, I'll jump the gun. Hello everyone, my name is Linus. I am an incoming transfer student to Stanford from El Camino College. I'm studying political science and psychology, so psychology is sort of pre-med, but not quite. And my favorite food is probably garlic chicken. In the future, I hope to either go into business, military, or politics. One of those three.
Uh, Go ahead, Ayan.
Okay, I was about to say, I'll go next. My name is Ayan. I'm a senior here at Stanford, and I'm studying human biology. In human biology fashion, I guess I have to tell you my concentration. Um, my concentration is the neural and psychological basis of disease, and I transferred from a community college in San Jose, California, called Evergreen Valley Community College. And my favorite food. I guess this isn't food, but the ube ice cream in one of the dining halls here at Stanford is my favorite dessert so far.
And Warda.
Hi everyone. I'm so sorry that I was late today. Hope you can forgive me. I'm a senior studying psychology and medical humanities here. I transferred to Stanford last fall, so I went to community college in my hometown, Sacramento. In the future, I hope to do research in cultural psych and mental health, with specifically doing clinical psychology. I hope to do a PhD in clinical psychology, and my favorite food. I think also sushi, but I've been really eating a lot of and making a lot of like stir fry. Thank you.
Nice. I guess I can go last. Hey everyone, my name is Jairo Reynoso. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a junior here at Stanford, transferred from Victor Valley Community College in Southern California. I'm studying mechanical engineering on the materials and structures track, but I'm on the pre-medical track. And my favorite food would have to be paella. I'm really a big fan.
All righty. So first question is what is one thing that if you had the what one thing that during the process that you did that you think set you apart during this admission process?
I'd be happy to answer that. I'll start off. Um, so I'm a single mom and I'm from Connecticut. And I think that did play a part into my journey to Stanford. But I'd say if you're someone that's in my situation, balancing parenting, maybe working, plus your academics, I'd say what made me stand out was taking that extra mile and showing that I can balance all of that and go above and beyond that. If anything, being a parent is a plus It gives me purpose, it gives me drive, as opposed to it being a barrier. So that's just speaking as a parent. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Being a parent gives you superpowers, I think, but I'm biased a little bit towards that one, but that's just anyone else?
I could go next. I guess one thing that I would say is being yourself is kind of like the best foot forward when it comes to the application process. I think it's quite important to do research and to figure out what the schools that you're applying for value, but I think it's key not to remove yourself from the picture when you are writing your essays. So kind of putting your personality out there and being unequivocally yourself. I think that was the strategy I took ahead. I took forward when I was writing my essays, and I think it worked pretty well.
Uh, piggybacking off what sorry, how do you pronounce it?
Ayan.
Ayan, sorry about that. What Ayan said, basically, a big part of it is just being yourself, even if some parts seem a bit over the top, or if you're not sure whether you're putting yourself too much out there. I recommend doing so because a lot of people have these really curated, highly edited essays, and that sort of sounds machine-like and not quite natural. But if you are yourself, the admissions officers will feel like they actually get to know you as a person as opposed to you as just another number on the document.
Yeah, I think what helped me kind of going on to what everybody else has said is like really theming my application and making it clear what I wanted to do at Stanford. Because one thing that I remember somebody told me years back is that Stanford is not looking for the most well-rounded person. They're looking for the best mathematician, the best psychologist, the best pre-med, whatever, like so on and so forth. So that's why I've really found it useful for me to really, yes, have an array of activities, but have a clear focus with, for me at the time, was psychology and still being on the pre-med track. And so I think making that my clear selling point, it gave confidence in the admissions officers that he's interested with what he wants to do, and he would add that to the Stanford community. So it's something that I always encourage people to kind of think of when they're putting their application together.
Yeah, I can go ahead and echo what Sebastian said. Making sure that you're intentional with how you communicate, like where you would fit at Stanford. Because everyone knows that Stanford is a school that has a lot of resources, but if you're able to convey to admission officers where you would fit, that you can imagine yourself in a certain department, interacting with certain faculty members, um, doing a specific type of research. That shows that you did your research on the school, that you actually went ahead and kind of visualize yourself being at Stanford and fitting in, and that makes the whole like, a whole difference. It really sets you apart.
Yeah, I guess I could conclude this question. I think from my experience, in my essays, I was very vulnerable. I was open to talking about personal experiences. I really appreciate the notes about authenticity and honesty, and transparency, because I think that your individual story really defines your character and your experience and how that kind of will take you on in that university during your time at Stanford or wherever you end up transferring. I think also I like the word intentional that Hiro used. I think that when I was doing my applications, I really focused on and being intentional. So by that I mean everything that I mentioned had a purpose, whether that being that certain experiences were significant to my academic purpose or future career interests or whatever the case may be. There was intentionality in everything that I wrote. So please be intentional and make sure that you kind of drive home that everything you are talking about kind of ties back to one concept or one idea, whether that be your future career interests or why you want to come to that university or whatever it is. But yeah, be intentional. There's like a word count for a reason. So yeah.
Awesome. Just making a plug. So we've had the Dean of Admission, Dean Shaw, and also the Director of Transfer Advising at Stanford speak, I think 4 or 5 times. I put the link of the last time he was on here, but if you go back on our website and our YouTube page, you can find the previous years. He's come every year, sometimes twice a year. And you watch that video. A lot of the questions you guys are asking, I think that was covered in that talk, and I think they're coming officially from the university standpoint of view. So, so some of the questions that are being asked are kind of like more official questions. Um, one of the questions is why did you decide to apply to Stanford and why did you decide to go to Stanford? Because some of you got accepted to multiple places, so.
I'm happy to kick it off again. So I'll be honest, Stanford was the only school that I applied for that was in New England. Um, I'm in realistically, I chose Stanford through a Google search, and I obviously knew of Stanford, but prior to it, but I put in a Google search, what are the best schools for anthropology? And my thought process was I can't not put my name in the hat, you know? And to be honest, kind of going back to our last question, I did my entire application in 2 days' time. Like I didn't have anyone look over my essays. Even looking back on them, they're kind of cringy, kind of embarrassing, because there were a couple grammar mistakes. And I just want to emphasize that like Stanford saw through all that and they looked at me holistically. But I originally was like, I was trying to decide between Mount Holyoke in Holyoke, Massachusetts, and Trinity College in Hartford, and like Stanford was the last school that I heard from. And I thought it was such a long shot. Like I barely told anyone that I even applied to Stanford. And sure enough, I got that application or I got that acceptance letter. So my big message that I want to say is just like reach for the stars. There's no harm in applying and putting your best self out there because you never know what might come back. And it's shaped my life forever. So.
Yeah, I have a yeah, I agree. I have a very similar story, and I'm laughing because I also did my application in a matter of a couple of days. My friends on screen who know my story know that like I never planned on coming here. I was very set on going to a UC. I'm, from Northern California. I'm low income. I'm first gen. A private school is pricey, of course. They're come with costs to being here, but ultimately, when the opportunity came my way, I couldn't say no. I think that's my best answer to why I chose Stanford. I mean, there are plenty of reasons why. It's an amazing psychology department. I have professors and individuals who I've admired and read their work all throughout my like academic career, and they all kind of work here and study here. It would be, you know, kind of insane not to come here and work alongside them and learn alongside them. But I completely agree with Carla's sentiment about reaching for the stars. I think I kind of underestimated myself a lot when I was applying to transfer. I applied out of high school to Stanford, got rejected, and didn't really think that it was worth applying again. And I just said like, why not, let's do it and see what happens. And I didn't set an expectation. I think that kind of helped me release the pressure, is that like whatever happens is going to be okay. If I get rejected, then I get rejected. But ultimately it worked out well, so yeah.
I think
Anyone else wants to add that?
Oh, yes. I think Stanford, in my experience, yes, there are a lot of schools similar that I applied to that really encourage that interdisciplinary education. But Stanford, they specifically had my interest, which was looking at the impacts of like climate change on medicine and whatnot. And that was something Stanford really spearheaded. And also they have an amazing psychology department, as Wartha said. So that's what also led me to apply, given that was my major. And so all those pieces kind of put together. And I've heard, and one thing I also was being mindful of was the pre-med culture. Stanford, from what I heard, was more of a collaborative pre-med community. And so that's why I also wanted to choose that. Of course, nothing's like perfect, but it's definitely better than from other things I've heard. And when I got my decision, they also gave me the best financial aid out of all the schools I applied to. So it was like kind of one and done, like day of I accepted the offer. So yeah.
I guess I can go next. Um, I had the privilege of having a parent that worked at Stanford growing up, so Stanford was the icon of like academic vitality, in the idea of like making it in like the academic sphere, especially for me growing up in the Bay Area. So I feel like throughout high school, it was always kind of that dream school, but I actually didn't apply out of high school. And when I was going through the application process in CC, it was kind of like that unachievable dream in my head. I don't know about the others, but when I was going through the application process, UCs and CSUs were kind of the shoe-in where it was like encouraged for students to apply, and all the private schools weren't really put on our radars, especially at my college. So when I was like telling people I was going to apply here, it was very much a not the best positive conversation surrounding it. So I think similarly to what was discussed previously, I took it as, well, the worst they can say is no. In not applying anyways is a definite no. So yeah, that
Yeah,
was kind of what drew me in.
I have a quote that I say 100% of people that don't apply don't get in. So if you don't apply, you're not going to get in. So that's the only statistic should matter because all the other stuff you have no control over. Like you have no control over how many people are going to apply. You have no control who's going to apply. So the only thing you can control is if you apply or not. Um, if anybody else wants to add to that, anyone? Anyone?
Yeah,
Okay. Oh, God, sorry.
some final words on that. Definitely, I know it's easy to get, caught up in the statistics of what it takes to transfer, right? Like it's like less than 1% or around that number sometimes. But like Jubin said, and echoing on what Ayan said, you you really never know until you try, right? As Carla mentioned, you got to shoot for the stars and just give it a shot. Um, I like as a high school dropout coming into community college, I was just grateful to be at community college. And really, I was just dreaming of getting to a 4 year once I did apply to transfer. And Stanford had a portal that I could apply to transfer to, and I decided just to give it a shot. So, you know, it really is about believing in yourself first and not letting any of all the other noise just get in your way. Just giving it your best shot. And as long as you're intentional with it and you give it an honest effort, that's all it takes.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone? Um, no. Okay. So the other one is people are asking a lot about financial aid. Stanford is very expensive. I could just tell you from a couple people that I know, but also don't take, our word, you know, um, I know like Sebastian's story because he shared it, but do you guys want to like talk a little bit about that? And then also make sure you look at the video that Dean Shaw literally talked about the cutoff point if your family makes, I think $85,000 or below, or $85,000 or below family, they meet 100% of your needs, and that's on the video. So do you guys want to talk about your experience of paying, I think how much is tuition now? 80, how much is it?
It's like 95,
Yeah,
right?
90 around that number.
How many of you are paying full price? Okay. So do you guys want to talk a little bit about like financial aid and support and how you paying for this?
Um,
Well, I can get it started.
yeah.
Similar to what Sebastian said, Stanford was my best offer. They were really generous with the aid I got, and I did have to couple it with a couple other scholarships here and there, but overall, of all like the state schools I applied to, CSUs, UCs, and even a couple out of states, Stanford was the most financially sound option for me. So I would definitely not let that discourage anyone from applying.
I want to echo that. I know that personally, when I was applying and looking at like Ivy Leagues, honestly, I was really hesitant to apply to out of state schools because I don't know, I've only ever been explained the like UC process and like UC in-state tuition versus out-of-state tuition and how pricey things can get. So I really was leaning towards going to a UC or CSU. But when I received, all of my like, I guess offers, I guess you could use the word, and my like packages, I received way less aid from UCs as like a California resident than I did from Stanford, and I was really confused about that. And I was like, are these schools being greedy? I don't even know what it was, but ultimately, I also was offered a really large scholarship here. And additionally, I applied for outside scholarships through whether it was the universities I applied to or like different foundations. I'm also a Cook Scholar, and that scholarship is up to $55,000 a year. So anything that Stanford wouldn't cover, that scholarship would provide for. But I'm very fortunate to be in a position where Stanford's offered a lot of money, and I have a blanket or like I think something to fall back on. Essentially, what I mean. But yeah, so I would really encourage applying to outside scholarships because if in the instance where you do get in here, but you don't get a lot of financial aid, there are plenty of foundations and institutions who are willing to offer a lot of money for you to like to fund basically your education.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think also, oh, sorry.
you can go.
Oh, thank you. I think it's sort of what, going back to what Jubin mentioned earlier, I believe that it's, I think 85K under they pay for all your tuition, 150K and under 150K to 100K is about half. And then 150K, I think you probably still get some financial aid, but it's all up in the air from then on.
Yeah, so I kind of want to piggyback off of what Warda was saying. I'm also a Jack Kent Cooke scholar. And I think the biggest thing that I want to convey here is Stanford, Ivies, they have money and they want, well, I can speak for Stanford, but Stanford wants to have a diverse student background population. And I have felt so supported as a low income single mom that's way below that 85,000. So I've been covered by Stanford and also have the Jack Kent Cooke scholarship. But this is also kind of like to where meet you all where you're at when you're still in community college. Apply for any scholarships you can get your hands on. Like so many um corporations want to give the money and they don't have students applying for these scholarships. And any little scholarship that you get, even if it's just like a $500 one here or there, which $500 is a lot, that looks so good on your resume too and can help build up so that when you apply for big scholarships, you have almost like this credibility that comes with it. So my whole the way it kind of dominoed for me was like I applied for the Seroptimist um, chapter scholarship and I ended up like becoming the North Atlantic region winner. And that really set me on the path of like, wow, my story matters here and I can get money for it. Like it was validating for me as a person, but financially made all the difference. And it just kind of like dominoes onto itself. And now I have the Jack Kent Cooke scholarship. And now I get a stipend for paying for childcare, all my food, the housing is all covered. And I think there's just so much information, misinformation out there about elite schools and how they're impossible for lower income folks. And to a degree they are, but not for financial reasons, as you would think. They Stanford has really, really supported me personally. And yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Um, for me, I think it's sad. I hate to say it, but financial aid is kind of a bittersweet topic where I'll put it in more context. But when I was looking at all my offers, especially with the UCs, I didn't get any aid for any of the UCs, and Stanford scholarship matched the price where it's I'm not paying the 90K, but I'm paying the same price I would as if I was going to a UC with no aid. So it is a bit tough where I'm in a situation where I don't meet a lot of the cutoffs for aid, but I don't really have that financial support from my family that can cover college because there's other situations going on. So it is a bit tough in that sense where financial aid was a big stressor for me, but I think it would have been the same stressor regardless of what school I went to because it seems like that was a universal theme across the board. Well, I would say one regret I had was not applying for transfer scholarships the summer prior, the year prior to transferring. If I can go back in time, I would have definitely looked into like the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation scholarship that a lot of you guys are talking about and like any other transfer scholarship. I feel like I realized after the fact that those were available and I didn't meet the criteria as an incoming transfer student. So I would say definitely take advantage of looking at scholarships while you can. Um, Another thing that I would say, just to bring on people's radars, was financial aid. I'm not too sure if this is too technical. And also, please take it with a grain of salt. This is from what I've been told. But when you have financial aid and you have a what is it called? Like the parent expected cost that your parent's supposed to cover, if you get a scholarship that exceeds your personal cost, they do take away from the Stanford scholarship that's given to you. So for me, it got to a point where my personal expected cost was so low and my parent cost exceeded it that if I got a scholarship, whatever exceeded my personal cost would have taken away from my overall scholarship, and then I would have just been in a net zero situation where I still needed to find the money somehow. So loans were my only option coming in. So I just want to like be transparent with that and what happened in my situation. But of course, speak to a financial officer, they know better.
Yeah, Ayan, I was thinking about the same thing because I also remember being told about scholarship displacement, and so of course they should still speak with their financial aid officer, but I searched it up on their Stanford's website, and apparently scholarship displacement is the thing. But I'm still wondering, like, for the people who receive the really big scholarships, did the financial aid office displace that, or did it allow you to still have the scholarship? I don't know, like Warda, Carla, if you know the answer to that.
Yeah, so we get the cost of attendance, which where everything is broken down into a budget. So you got housing and food is one. For me, I have childcare expenses, tuition, supplies. I don't remember exactly what they are, but they estimate based on your situation, this is how much you're budgeted. So Stanford came to me with like, okay, this is what we're going to cover, which was pretty much everything. Um, and then Jack Kent Cook, kind of like in Warda's situation, is like a backup. Or I had a really great situation where Jack Kent Cook was able to cover up more of my childcare expenses than Stanford was. So they kind of worked together to make sure that I got the maximum benefit. And then it's kind of nice. I mean, I don't foresee anything happening with my financial aid situation changing, but I'm covered in both directions. So yeah, they make sure that you've got your expenses covered, and you get that stipend back. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Carla explained it well. I don't have anything else. I mean, of course, our situations are different. So obviously my breakdown will look differently than hers, but ultimately, I receive once I like got in, a breakdown of like what it costs to go here and then what they're covering. And then I looked at how much Jack and Cook can cover. I mean, it was pretty fine. And then ultimately these two foundations and our offices work together to make sure that I am financially okay and I can, you know, be covered to attend this school. So both offices are here to support their students. Yeah, I also don't foresee any changes in the next 2 quarters before I graduate. But yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Some people want to know what the Jack Cook Kent Foundation Scholarship is, and I put the link in there, but you all that have received it, can you explain what it is and what do you have to do to get it besides being awesome?
Okay, so the Jack Kent Cook Foundation, I know it's kind of hard to say, but Jack Kent Cook is a former philanthropist. I actually don't know when he passed away. I don't know all the details, but a very generous man who was interested in investing his money in students and college students. And essentially, this foundation offers 4 different scholarships. There's a Young Scholars Program, which is for middle school students. There is a high school scholars program, which is for high school students. So if you have like friends or family who are like coming out of high school, seniors applying to college, they can also apply for the scholarship. And there's the undergraduate transfer scholarship, which is what Carla and I are under. And then there's a graduate scholarship. So I'm just going to talk about the undergraduate transfer scholarship. That's like what I'm under. Basically, this is a scholarship that offers second year students who are in community college. The deadline was January 9th, I believe. So we're a little past that, unfortunately, but I hope that if you're hearing this, you potentially apply already. Don't want to give like news after the math, but anyways, basically the foundation offers up to $55,000 per year, covering tuition, housing, food, books and supplies, and then like personal expenses to support students who are community college transfers, low income, first gen. They have a specific interest in students who do service work. So community service, community advocacy. Personally speaking, I have a strong background in mental health advocacy work, community education and outreach. So in my application, I talked a lot about that and what kind of work I've done in my community in regards to Muslim mental health. So they look at students who have specific passions in community service and public service, and like in what ways have you contributed to your community, and what ways will you further contribute to the community that you're going to enter at university, and then so on and so forth. Please let me know if I'm forgetting anything, Carla. Also, I'm talking fast. I'm so sorry. I'm thinking kind of fast, but yeah, basically it's a foundation that supports low income and first gen students. And then additionally, that foundation or that program for undergraduate transfers looks at service and offers financial aid for students who need it. That's basically the TLDR.
I have nothing to add to that. That was
And then I saw a question, sorry, I'm like looking about how to find scholarships, and I just maybe want to like answer that in a 1 second blurb. Google. I'm gonna be really honest. Like I just Googled like what scholarships are available to trans students, what scholarships are available to first gen Black students. Like I just Googled my demographic or my population or what I am and scholarship, and then I saw a bunch of things. There's a SMUD scholarship that I applied for. Look up scholarships in the university you're applying to. For example, like UCLA has this like, I think I wrote it down and I went back. UCLA Alumni Scholarship, look at Regents for the UCs, look at if you go apply to USC, the Merit Scholarship, like find these like little, scholarships that are hidden within the programs, universities. They're kind of hard to find, but like just Google the school you're interested in, what demographics, and then scholarship, and hopefully things will pop up. I'm happy to like send things, but that's just honestly how I found my things.
Can I add to that really quick? Because I was a student worker in the financial aid office. So I'm very passionate about this. Yeah, so I mean, like you can go to local banks. I know even Burger King, McDonald's, they all have little scholarships. I won one from a grocery store once. Like just scour your local businesses. But your community college should have a foundation too. Different community colleges have different levels of ways they can support their students, but definitely check there. And I mean, just think about whatever makes you unique. So like for me, I grew up Jehovah's Witness. I mean, there's no foundation actually for my demographic, but like if you're Jewish, for example, I'm sure there's many foundations and scholarships out there for people that are Jewish. If you have red hair, I don't know, just anything, you can kind of think about what makes you unique and just Google, just like Wardo said.
Yeah, I could tell you, my community college, I applied to a bunch of scholarships, and they basically told me, like, I got a bunch of them, and then they're like, yeah, we can't give you any more because we've given you too much and not a lot of people applied. So we kind of have to, like, we can't give you so you just have to apply. And I think what Carla said earlier is, if you ever read anything with Malcolm Gladwell or the 10,000 hour rule, like if you guys want to get the big scholarships, you got to be really good at getting the little ones. So if the first scholarship you're going to apply to, it's the Jack Cook Kent one, first of all, you're going to look at the darn thing and you're going to be overwhelmed. That's the first thing. First thing I do whenever something, and it's pretty overwhelming. It's very detailed, and you only get like so many words. And so if you haven't told your story and practice it for a $500 scholarship that basically wants you to put, like, there's one scholarship that I got. The only thing I had to do was $250. I just had to put my name, my student ID, and that was it. And that was like the only thing that and I had to upload my transcript, and that was it. So even that part of it takes practice because for Jack Cook Kent, they make you jump through 75 different hoops. And if you haven't done it, you're not going to be good at it. And so, and every community college, at least I know this in California, has a scholarship office that gives out anywhere between $100,000 to $2 million. Like I think like the biggest one is Santa Monica College. Don't quote me on it, but they have like and their scholarships are very simple. They may ask you to fill out one application and a couple essays. And that's like I don't know, like every year I get like $7,000 or $8,000. So, you know, like every year that I've applied. So that's again, you're gonna have to apply. So if you want to get the big ones, um, if you want to get the big ones, you gotta like where's the you have to be perfect at the small things to be grand at the big things or something like that, or some sort of quote. I'm not exactly sure. Anyways, anybody else has anything else to add about scholarship? I put a couple of links, PTK and then Shally. They used to be a separate company, but they got bought out by Sally Mae. So I don't know how they are now, but I know that I found a bunch of, oh, in a scholarship universe, there's another website too that I've used as well. And some of the schools have signed up for it. Scholarship universe. And some of them are like scholarship universe. Here you go. They're like connected to like your school. So this is another that you could take a look to. And that's one of those ones that you just do one applications for everything. Some somebody wants to know how did they what kind of extracurricular activities did you do um in your community college, and what extracurricular did you do in your community college, and what you think helped you?
I guess I can go first on this one. So, yeah, yeah, El Camino, I did a lot of student government work. I was a center at my school, and through that, I also joined a lot of committees to work with professors and administration to improve the quality of life for my fellow students. I also got elected to the SSCCC, which is like pretty much student government, but at a state level. It's a bit probably it's a bit slower there, but it's a very interesting process, and you get to see how things work out at a wider scale. And for more local student government, it just feels good to be able to help people. And then I also joined the speech and debate team too. And there are probably some clubs too, but I've noticed community college clubs aren't quite as active as my student government or debate team. Did that answer the whole question, or did I miss that part of it?
I think that was great. Yeah, similar to Linus, I also was involved in student government work, but I also want to say before I kind of talk about my extracurriculars is that I think people, and maybe take this with a grain of salt, maybe this is just my opinion, but I think people tend to get very wrapped up in making sure they have a long list of like really, really like great and strong and like wordy potentially extracurriculars, and I think we get kind of like lost in the sauce potentially where we're like trying to have this like really strong resume, and though that is important, I do want to say that don't feel as though you need to have a long list of like really really great things and have your own startup and be your own president. I think that being intentional and do a couple of different things that matter to you demonstrates, I think, a strong like extracurricular palette. So now saying that, speaking on like the note of intentionality, I did a lot of mental health work, as I mentioned before. I began like mental health volunteering in high school, and then COVID hit during my junior year, so that kind of like the in-person kind of connection for mental health on tour kind of like was diminished because you can't be, face to face as you couldn't be as face to face as you were previously due to the pandemic. So I did a lot of like virtual advocacy work, I guess you could say. I joined a statewide board and became like vice president, and that was a mental health board that focused on advocacy and awareness for youth mental health resources. And then at my community college, I continued in leadership and was president of my community college and was involved with PTK. I saw the link was dropped in the chat, and was vice president of membership. So stayed intentional with like the organizations that felt mattered most to me. But additionally, besides that, I like became a research assistant because I'm interested in research. So like I pursued things that I felt aligned with like future career goals. So I think doing things that matter most to you is probably like your best bet. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
To piggyback, I completely agree. I feel like it's best practice to make your activity list kind of like paint a picture. So intentionality is very key. And I just want to say your actions speak louder than your words. So even if you have like a few activities, just showing that you're dedicated to those few reflects who you are. So I would definitely keep that in mind. A list of activities I did, my activities centered mostly around community service. So I focused heavily on equity work and community work. So I was part of student government for 2 years. I was a special populations and program senator for my first year. That was what branched me into it. And then I was my school student body president for my second year. And in that work, I was heavily involved, and again, a lot of equity and community aspects of running the college. So, like, I would attend council meetings, make sure that my fellow students' voices are represented, and also on a district level, I was maintaining that. And also, I don't think a lot of people think of this, but there are ways for students not even engaged in student government to be involved in hiring faculty on campus and making sure that the people that are teaching you represent your community or your best interests. So definitely please, I love doing that as a student, so I would recommend doing that. I made a dance club and a We STEM club, which is typically it would be a women in STEM club, but then we also included it to be we to include non-binary people as well. So it's a very safe haven for that community that's felt underrepresented at my college. I also worked as a Red Cross volunteer and a phlebotomist, and similarly part of the honors club. And through the honors club and PTK, I was doing honors research projects to represent my future interests as well. Sorry, that was very long-winded.
I can go next. Yeah, regarding my extracurriculars, I think my biggest selling point with Stanford, at least, I think, was my research background. I was at community college for 2 years, and I was working as a part-time research assistant at UCI, which was my local 4-year university. And so I was doing like physiological type research, and that was related to my interests within medicine and psychology. And then similarly, like everybody else, I was also involved in student government, but my specific focus was related to sustainability activities and also mental health activities as well. And then I started a STEM club on campus and was in PTK as well, part of the honors program. And then for both summers, I also did research internships. And so I think since majority of the schools I were applying to were very much research heavy institutions, I think that could have been something that potentially helped. But those were kind of my main areas of focus within undergrad.
Yeah, I'd say similarly to what Sebastian said, I say research was my strongest point. Taking advantage of the 3 years I was community college and having a couple summers in between each year, I was able to take part in a couple of research internships that really I felt made me stand out, especially since I was coming from a region, like a rural region, where we're really like underserved, and there really isn't much industry around the area or really academic institutions whatsoever. So being able to go outside of my region during the summers to do research was something that I definitely feel made me stand out and be that much more prepared for a research institution like Stanford. Beyond that, I was a part of student government, as I think most of us here on the panel were as well. And my work really focused on helping improve access to STEM programs on our campus as a student services senator and a science senator. I really felt like I was able to make an impact on working with faculty to kind of address some of the lack of STEM programs we had coming out of COVID, and really students feeling like we weren't being served properly in that area. Beyond that, I also was able to get a couple clubs started, especially a pre-med club that our community college hadn't had for several years, and being able to extend that to volunteering at different hospitals in the region. Um, Really, as Warda said, being intentional about what you do, and if you end up having a long list of stuff, let it be because you're passionate about it. I feel like if you go about it, trying to check off some boxes or something, that typically doesn't go well, and it can be easily seen through. So having commitments that you genuinely feel connected to and passionate about, if you come if you address it in that way, it'll communicate itself in your essays and the way you talk about it, and that'll just shine in everything you apply for and every program you try to get into.
So, surprise, I was also in student government. I think that's an interesting parallel that all of us, I think, have. Um, so I also participated in multiple clubs like PTK. I got involved with early, and I was vice president of fellowship. I also I started a poetry club, but joined our student government, was elected vice president, and from there I became the representative for a campus for in the community state or Connecticut state colleges and universities. It's like a oh my gosh, I'm sorry. It's like a committee within the CSCU system. From there, I was voted in as chair. So then I became a student regent. And so I was a voting member of that and was able to participate in some really big decisions made statewide for the state college and university system. Um, so I would say that is a huge thing, but I didn't do it because I thought I was wanting to get into Stanford. I did it because I was passionate about it. And I went in intentionally and purposefully to advocate for others and uh, just do what I can. So I think everybody it's a theme, I think, to follow your passions and really think about what kind of person you are, what you stand for, what your values are, and kind of going way back to this application process. That's going to shine through if you have this if you stand for certain values, that's going to come through in your essays. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I would just say nothing is worse than life to do something because you don't enjoy doing it. Um, because that it's just like a horrible way to like to me, like this is just I'm using Sebastian as an example because I know him the most. Like the dude, like you talk to him about environment and environmental stuff, like he'll talk to you until like he turns blue. And then you probably turn like pink because you're like, dude, like but that's just like that's what he's passionate about. Like to him, that's a very passionate thing. And but if you would tell him to, I don't know, go play pickleball or do something else like he doesn't like doing, like he just couldn't talk about it. Like he talks about like environment and environmental policy and what he's done, and he's been on this think tank, and he's doing this and he's doing that, and his research project is doing like how to figure out like when you're operating on patients that trash is limited, and impact. It's like all that stuff. It's like that's really great. Like those are really important to him, and it's important to the world, but it's really important to him. Where to somebody else, you'd be like, I mean, it is important, but like I'm not losing sleep over it, you know. But I'm sure Sebastian loses sleep over that, and you know, and I'm pretty sure Carla, when she was involved in student government and talking about policy, she lost sleep over that. But to somebody else, you'd be like, policy, I hate politics or something like that. So, you guys are all looking for, you know, what everyone has done and trying to repeat that, which I mean, I think it's good to look at people as role model, but these folks like Warda, I don't know her, but I could tell you that her and I could, talk hours on hours about mental health and about her experience. I could give her about my experience working in the ER and dealing with mental health, people that are struggling with mental health. But you could tell that you don't really need to like fake it. I mean, they said, in life you should fake it till you make it, but also they can't fake it. Like they could really passionately talk about this. So do the things that you enjoy. Like if you all like don't like work like student clubs are great, but if that's not your cup of tea, don't do it. There's like hundreds of things you could do that you really enjoy doing. Like one of the things I really enjoy doing, I love concerts. So I go volunteer at concerts and events because I'm an EMT and I work in healthcare, but like that's what I enjoy doing. And that's what I do with my free time. But if you don't and I've gone to concerts to the music that I don't like just because they were short, and it was horrible. Like I had a miserable time certain types of music. But when I go and listen to, Bruce Springsteen or other ones, I have a really good time. So do the things that you enjoy, guys. Like you guys are all asking about these things. There are certain things that you should do that are important, like doing well academically. Like some of you guys are asking questions like, do I need to have a 4.0 to get into Stanford? Some of you could answer that.
I personally did not have a 4.0. I had a 3.8.
I also had a 3.84, but my high school transcript was horrendous. I have a story to back up why that is, but yeah, no 4.0 here.
I had a 4.0, but from the people I've talked to, a lot of them didn't have a 4.0, especially for the STEM majors. But of course, it probably wouldn't hurt, I guess.
I mean, since we're sharing, I had a 3.9 in community college, but I mean, I did drop out of high school, so.
All right. All right. So you don't have to have a 4.0. Um, so that answers like 17 questions there about GPA. This is a question. I think that Sebastian and Yara talked about summer research. Can you guys just touch a little bit about that? The other thing is literally at 5 o'clock, Dr. Anthony, who does all the like Stanford Community College summer research programs, she's going to talk about that at 5 o'clock. So we'll end this session and then go to that one at 5, and you could come and find out about all their summer programs because they've got like a whole list of them that are just for community college students. So, but you guys want to touch on that just a little bit? People that did summer programs.
Sure. Yeah. I think I definitely needed an Excel sheet to write all these summer programs down. But I think first thing I did was first like literally Google like what are internships related to like best for pre-meds or things like that. And often some more common ones would come up like Amgen scholars and stuff like that. But then I also looked at four-year universities' websites. I believe it was Northwestern or Boston University, and some schools like that, they have a list of summer programs that they recommend for their own pre-med students. So I literally looked at their list. And then also the AAMC also has a list of summer programs as well. So I looked through all of those and see which ones I was eligible for and which ones were preferably going to pay, more than I would like. So that way I'm not just doing work for free. And so when I made all those together, that's when when I put all those together, then put into a spreadsheet, which allowed me to see like deadlines and put every key information I needed to do. And so that's what kind of best helped me navigate going through all of these summer programs. And so don't feel like, I also recommend sometimes not applying to like, they're not necessarily big name, but just the more popular ones, you know, like there's often a lot of ones that aren't as well known, but they offer the same great experience, if not better, and you're able to get closer with professors or your PIs compared to the other person and get connected to that school that you're interning at as well. So those are some key things to consider.
Yeah, so similar to Sebastian, make Excel and Google your besties. It can be so simple, even though I think I tend to overcomplicate things. As somebody who only thought research was related to like cancer stuff, I was like, I don't even know how, like honestly, like research can correlate back to like what I'm interested in. After my first year, during my first year community college, I like honestly coincidentally stumbled upon this like flyer that was for a program at Hopkins. And it was called the Johns Hopkins Humanities Collaboratory Summer Research Program. I think it's still running. But it was a 4-month program where they covered flight expenses, they gave a stipend, housing, food was catered every day for like the office. I was basically being paid to like conduct my own research project based on my own interests. It was humanities specific program, so for it wasn't necessarily pre-med, but there were plenty of students who were pre-med there and were conducting their own research projects on like medical related like concepts and ideas. I that was kind of where like research was birthed for me personally. Like I kind of was allowed to explore different ideas and dive deep into topics that I like had never kind of had time to explore, or answer questions that I never had time to explore. And that was a phenomenal experience. It was honestly the best 4 months of my life during like my community college time. I made such good friends. And my project was on looking at rhetoric in the media regarding mental health and how mental health is sensationalized when discussing topics of school shooting incidents in the US. So just looking at how mental health is used as a scapegoat to avoid addressing the like core issue at hand, which is we need gun regulation essentially to avoid the continuous pattern of school shooting incidents happening at K through 12 schools in the US. And I just looked at the different language use in media and how like reports kind of were given out to the world in regards to when these incidents happen. And I was also, that program was like a research program, but also gave transfer and like I think grad school advice. There were workshops like embedded into the program during the 11 weeks we were there to kind of work on your transfer applications and look at grad school. And they were kind of individuals who were like life-changing, I think, life-changing, sorry, relationships, I'm trying to say. But yeah, it was a great experience. Again, Google, I just kind of like Googled it and then also saw a flyer in an email. And that was, I think, where I was able to kind of learn more about research and ultimately maybe decide that I wanted to do mental health in the future.
If I can add really quick, say a summer program is a little too much commitment, like you're not too sure if research is for you. One thing I did that I would highly recommend is going to the faculty at your community college and just kind of asking if they can give you a taste of what research is like. Like I did some honors research projects that were more like exploratory, like looking at the efficacy of antibiotics. I'm not really interested in the efficacy of antibiotics, but it was after having a conversation with one of my professors, it was their area of strong suit where they were interested in microbiology, and they gave me a rundown on how to conduct certain experiments. And it was like a few days of them just giving me a taste of what research is like. And then that kind of motivated me to like look further. So if you have like a STEM dean or any STEM or like any professor that you like that does research or has done research, they're very valuable resources. And even if you don't do any formal research before transferring, a lot of universities, once you transfer in, have beginner-friendly research programs. Like for me, I've never done formal research where I would have to do like extensive experimenting, data collection, and all of that. But once I got into like a human biology program here, they had a very beginner-friendly program where they kind of held your hand and walked you through everything. And lo and behold, I loved it, and that kind of motivated me to pursue an MD, PhD. So just know it's not too late. You still have a lot of time to figure out if research is for you, and if it's not for you, there's no worries.
Yeah, the other thing is that I would also say that at your community college, if you're taking general chemistry, um, bio, physics, all of your professors minimally have done a master's degree, and they've either themselves done research, know people that are doing research, or some of their friends that they went to school with are doing research, and so they could connect you. But that just means that you have to show up to your lab and get to know your professor, go to office hours, get to know them. Don't go up there and ask the first questions. I want to do research. Get me into research right now. That's probably not a good way to do it. But it'd be like, oh yeah, so I see that you have a master's, or oh, you have a PhD. What was your PhD in, or what did you do? What was your PhD research involved with? And was it, this? And just ask him questions. And if you don't know the questions you ask, there's this new invention called Google and also ChatGPT that you could ask like 10 questions. You should ask somebody who's done research and give you some really good insight that you could ask those questions. And so on the topic of ChatGPT, people are asking, should they use ChatGPT on their essay?
I would all of us like flinching. I would not. I think that although it's honestly, I believe it's a helpful resource in a lot of ways. Um, it's going to strip you of your authenticity and your ability to be as transparent and vulnerable and individualistic as you can be. And also, I honestly think that admission boards will know that you use ChatGPT, so I wouldn't do that. Um, but I think yeah, it's just not a good idea in terms of like maybe like formatting potentially. I'm trying to think of ways to integrate it into your work, but I think ultimately like your voice should shine through, and if your voice is not shining through your essays, then something is missing, and you're really doing yourself a disservice.
I
I
would
agree
say,
with, oh, sorry.
oh, sorry.
Uh,
We're
I
all so passionate about this.
yeah,
Um,
I,
I
I,
would say
I think
is that um use oh my God, use ChatGPT as a support tool. Don't make it your writing tool. Like, don't let it write your essays for you, but say like you're coming up blank or you just want an example of how someone could potentially go about writing a certain topic, or if you need help brainstorming or bouncing ideas off. I would say it's a good resource. I guess I wonder if I can say this. I used ChatGPT today to like figure out the best way to write or kind of figure out research questions. If my research question has any holes in it for like a personal statement for a program I'm applying to. So there are ways you can use ChatGPT to like better your writing, but don't make it write for you, is what I would say.
it's sort of what Ayan and Warda said. Don't use it right for you. Personally, I didn't use it at all because a personal vendetta against like AI and for art and writing. But overall, if you need like essay help or recommend going to your schools, or most community colleges have a transfer. I forgot, a transfer program. I
Transfer
recommend
Center.
going to them to ask for help. Yeah, transfer center. Thank you. So overall, recommend going to them first, is you don't have to use ChatGPT.
So the only thing that I would add to this is when you open the Common App, they will literally ask you if you've used ChatGPT or AI for your essay. The second thing is they have readers now that they could pick up the patterns. They could pick up the pattern. So if you say that you've not used it and you've used it, they will know. And the dean, I think Dean Shaw really went over this as well. But also at the end of the day, ChatGPT is good for some formatting or asking questions, but for essays that have to be personal and explain about you they're not using your voice. The first thing is that ChatGPT does not write from the personal standpoint. So that's pretty much the first thing you could tell. That is not ChatGPT. So don't use it. And there's a lot of resources like the Transfer Center, English professors, and those things, and use those as resources that you have that are available to you. Because if you get caught using it, I know somebody who used it to apply to some programs and they did not get into any of them. And and they told me, it's like, yeah, I applied to a bunch of things, I didn't get it. It's like, well, did you use AI? And they're like, yes, I use AI. And it's like, yeah, they have readers in them now. So it's actually Common App even asks you that question, and the people that read it on the other end, they have detectors. So
Yeah, and I just want to add to all of this that like they're not polished. Polished is might not be genuine. And like in my case, mine was not polished and they saw right through that. If I had plugged it into AI, it would have fixed some things. Um, and also, if you like kind of pull out in the big picture, whether you end up at Stanford, whether you end up at Yale, or just like UConn, or I don't know, whatever schools you're applying for, you want a good fit. And so even like for example, I applied to Yale to the Eli Whitney program, and I was rejected from Yale. And looking back on it, I realize how great that was. I mean, Yale is a fantastic school. It wasn't right for me though. Stanford is a great fit for me though. And I think it's because I was genuine and authentic in my application, which means not using AI. And also, I do believe that admissions officers are very aware when they're reading your application, like where you come from, what your background is. And they're not expecting you to be polished. They know you're a community college student. They especially if you're low income first generation, that you might not have this language to describe, but they'll see through it. So yeah.
so this is a question people are asking about transferring your units. This is multiple questions. People asking, how many units did you take at community college? How many of them did you transfer? How did they transfer? Were they transferable? What did you do? I get see for us California people that like here I get see and they start having seizures. Uh, can you guys talk a little bit about that from your personal experience?
I think I can get us started on that. I feel I can speak for most of us here that we've had very interesting experiences with articulating our units. Prior to coming to Stanford, I I think I took about 105 semester units at my community college. The reason I took so many was because I took some classes I didn't really need at the time in my first year in community and just specific circumstances there. But um, I was able to get 90 units transferred into Stanford. The difficult part of that process, however, is that Stanford is really picky with what they accept from your community college. I'm sure the other panelists will also have something to say on the matter, but Stanford has been very gracious in many ways. They have a lot of resources, but one thing I am not a fan of has been the transfer credit articulation process. And there's reasons for that. There's so many different schools they have to reach out to, and they have to like go and verify each class individually. But in essence, I've had to kind of like state my case for why every single course and unit that I've wanted to transfer ha deserves to be transferred in. And that has been a pretty tedious process that actually now that I've been here for a year and a quarter, I've just so managed to resolve after this time. So yeah, it's been kind of complex, but as long as you're willing to put in the effort to state your case and explain why you believe a certain course should be transferred, generally the staff or the transfer department here at admissions is typically receptive to it.
I would say I agree. Coming into Stanford, I guess I could say I was at CC for 3 years, and in that time, I took quite a bit of courses, mainly because I didn't really know what I wanted to do for university. So I did business and econ, got AAs for those, and then I ended up figuring out that was not what I wanted. So I switched to biology and chemistry. Um, and in that turn, I finished like 180 units before transferring, but Stanford only took 90 of those. So I had right from the get-go, I had to like communicate which of those units I wanted to transfer in. And um, when you come in, you don't declare a major. So the transfer, whoever deals with like the registrar, they assume that the courses that I wanted to transfer in were my business econ side, but it was in fact wrong, where I had to go and communicate that no, in fact, I wanted to like pursue my bio degree more. And that was a whole conversation that needed to be opened up. But in doing so, there's one thing I would say is that there is discrepancy between what the school would accept and what your department will accept. So what the overall school may say is okay to be used as your general units for like the 90 credits is not exactly what your, say like the hum bio department will say yes for. So even though my biology credits were accepted, my department did not accept it. So I did a whole year of biology over again. So there is a lot of discrepancies with that, and I'm still kind of, I wish the conversation was done at this point, but I'm fighting to be able to graduate by this year, so I'm still having these discussions, trying to like argue my point and try to get that all across. And it's annoying again because this year there's, I guess I wonder if someone else can piggyback off of this with more knowledge on this, but the financial aid process for staying here an extra year is not the greatest. So a lot of people are fighting to get done in 2 years instead of 3 years. And I'm one of those people that was originally slotted for 3 years and is now trying to cram everything in 2 years. So it's a bit of a struggle.
So I guess I'll go next. I'll be honest, my story is a little different. I felt lucky to be in community college, much less here at Stanford. And so I think 86 of my credits transferred over, and I challenged nothing. Not saying that's what you should do, but to be honest, like I went to a really small community college. There weren't as many opportunities as if I went to a bigger one. So I think there was a maximum of like 1,000 students at any one time. Very small community college. So I also didn't have a major, like an anthropology major wasn't an option in my community college, even though that's what I knew I wanted to do. And it offered 2 courses in anthropology in the whole school. So it's like for me, I just kind of patchworked courses that I found interesting, that were really, I ended up doing a general studies major. So I came here expecting like I have no idea what's going to transfer. I'm also working with the anthropology department to see what will apply to my major requirements. And I'm kind of at the beginning of those conversations, and it is very department by department. Um, so one idea is that if you know what you want to major in, you could connect with that department while you're still in community college, maybe compare courses and see what might have a better chance of transferring if you get into Stanford, and kind of going that route. But
Yeah, I'll go next. So, similar to Ayan, I also did, it was technically 3 years at community college, but it was like 2 years in one semester. I decided to graduate high school early and just start community college immediately. And it kind of was weird because I was still applying to 4 universities, but simultaneously was like, I'm just going to start community college anyways, because I kind of was done with high school. It was COVID, so I was like, there's really no point in this online school business. I'm just going to kind of start college immediately. So I think I ended up with around 100 and something units. The psych department, I think initially took like 80, 85, and then I had to like kind of push back and insist that some of these courses were consistent with the material that some of the other courses at Stanford already had. And I think my department was more concerned that they wanted, and this is like a quote, they wanted a lot of the learning to be done in their department. So like they want to make sure that your psych experience or psych learning was done within Stanford's psych department. And I understand that. I think that the educational experience here is very unique, but at the same time, I had done a lot of work at my previous institution to get these classes done, and I wanted them to count towards something. So I think Hyra said this, but like I pushed back, and with a lot of self advocacy, ultimately I got what I wanted, and it worked out well. These people are ultimately here for you. They just have a lot of guidelines to follow, I guess I could say. So they ultimately want to play by the book, but also listen to your story and hear you out. So you kind of have to play both sides and acknowledge that this is the system that they had set up for a while, but also that ultimately like you want what's best for yourself, and that means self-advocating. I think was that the end of all the points of the question? I don't remember, sorry. But I think that was mostly it.
Sebastian, do you have anything to add?
Honestly, not really. Everybody pretty much covered everything. But I know some people are asking about the equivalencies, but like I was on the semester system before this. And so if you took 60 semester units, then that's equivalent to 90 quarter units. For me, I had 76 semester units over a span of 2 years, and I was able to transfer in the max 90. And yes, every department is their own kingdom. I remember as Alice Petty would always say and stuff. And so as a result, it's dependent upon them, not always the university. And so whether or not, even if I wasn't pre-med and just engineering, I would still have to be here for 3 years no matter what. And so there's some flexibility with certain departments, but yeah, kind of what everybody else has said.
Yeah, I would say the most important thing, and I know that Dr. Anderson and Dean Shaw covered that, is 60 semester units, 90 quarter units. That's the max. So 60 units times 1.5 is 90 quarters. That's the maximum you could transfer. So yeah, and so basically that's the max you could answer. That's the max that you could transfer. The last question before we leave is if you could go back and give an advice to yourself when you were at community college, what would it be? And then the other one would be if you have to do something, if you have to redo this again, if you have to, what would you do differently?
So, I'll start that off. So, I started community college back in 2016 when my son was a toddler, and I was working full time. This is not going to resonate with everybody that's on here, but I was working full time at a bank, part-time job, and a single mom with a toddler. And the most I could do was a course or two a semester because I assumed that I would have to work full time and school was like in addition. And then I burned out after a few years of a course or two each semester and took a few years off. And then I had a conversation with someone who actually changed my life. And I don't know if you all probably know this, but in case you don't, I didn't. And at 29, I found this out where she just sat me down and she's like, you can take out student loans for living expenses, right? And I was like, I don't have to work. Like, I mean, I'm piling up student loans, but like that was life changing for me. And that day, I went home and registered for my local community college. I transferred. I actually went to two community colleges, and just immersed myself in my academic world. And that would be the biggest advice I would have. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, and I didn't know at the time, but like you don't you can even if you're a single mom like me, you can end up at Stanford one day and just it's possible. It really is possible. So yeah, I think that's I'm sorry, I'm very tired right now.
I thought that was beautiful. Thank you, Carla. And I also feel the tiredness. But I think that maybe The advice I'd give myself is to be more trusting of myself. I think that I think I mentioned this, but I applied to Stanford and I applied to many schools out of high school, and I was rejected to all of them, and that completely depleted my confidence. And I thought I was not going to go far. I thought I wasn't going to leave community college. And my family is a testament to this. I mean, I was like just a mess like my first years during community college, and I had no hope and I did not believe in myself. And despite applying to Stanford, and that requires some self-confidence, but still ultimately when I was writing my application, submitting my application, I was like, I have like no purpose. Like I don't know like where I'm going to end up. And I have this like charm bracelet that I found actually when I came to Stanford, and I developed this like mantra that was like trust and acceptance, and like trust that like everything's going to be okay, and that like wherever I end up is like where I'm meant to be, and then accept that like whatever happens is like what was meant to happen. So acceptance of like where I end up, and trust that everything's gonna be okay, and I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And that, I think, having that kind of like hope and faith like really kind of guided me through that process. But I wish I like really ingrained that in my head earlier on, because I was just a disaster, I think, all throughout that process, and just an anxious mess like the entire time. And then I think I wouldn't do anything differently, honestly. I know that I probably have critiques and there are things that I would tweak, but ultimately, like, I do believe everything happens for a reason. And um, if I regret like the things that I did in the past, then I think that it would have ultimately changed where I am today. So I have no regrets. I'm very grateful and very fortunate and very appreciative of everything that's happened. And like, well, the hardships and the like failures, and then also the wonderful things, I'm grateful for it all. So I wouldn't change anything.
Well, I would say also thank you both for sharing that. That was so inspirational. Um, I wish I knew I I guess these are things I'm just figuring out even today, but one of those things is it's okay to say no to things. I want you guys all to know that I feel like when you're transferring, you're in the hopes of transferring, you're trying to do as many things as possible and trying to like be the best application or the best applicant or the best student possible. And at times, I wish I've said no to things because coming here to Stanford, there was a lot of times where I was very burnt out and I didn't listen to myself or listen to my body telling me that I needed to take a rest. So I just kept pushing it because it was what I was used to. Just saying yes to everything, trying to take advantage of as many resources as I could. But I do want you guys to know that it's okay to say no and it's okay to not be okay. I think that's something I'm figuring out today where it's like it's okay to not be able to figure out everything on your own, and it's not a weakness to ask for help, you know? So there are resources there, but they're not all just for like extracurriculars. There's resources here for support as well. So if you need help, if you need support, please take advantage of that. Like it's here for a reason. You're not alone. You're not the only one struggling. And yes, it's easier said than done, and I'm still figuring this out, but I hope you guys have an easier time with that than I did.
For me, if I would tell myself to be more in the present, because I have this problem, like I'm sure many others, where it's this neurotic mindset where I'm always thinking about what's next. And so, especially when I was working on the essays with the transfer application process, I was always thinking of like, okay, then I have to do then the summer stuff and just keep on going from there. And so as a result, it sometimes made great things that happened to me in life, sometimes it didn't feel as impactful, because then after that happened, I was like, okay, well, now I have to do this and then I have to do that. And so I think that has gotten better for me over time. I just wish that's something I knew way earlier. And so that's the advice I would bestow to you all, to live in the present. It's easier said than done, but you got to do it.
And Linus, you're the last one.
Yeah, so I came back from a language speaking test, so I didn't hear the question.
Oh, if any advice would you give yourself when you were in community college?
Okay, so I basically amalgamation of what everyone said, like live in the present. When I was in community college, I guess for a different reason than Sebastian, I kept thinking like, okay, I'm gonna transfer soon, so I shouldn't get too attached. But then I realized that I was getting pretty lonely there too. Even though I was in student government, I never really spent time with anyone because I had to commute. So I guess one of my biggest things is like, to stay in the present and get involved on campus, because even though the whole point is to transfer eventually, that doesn't mean we can't enjoy our time there and really invest our time in helping others too. Basically, do something you're passionate in and make a community.
All righty. Well, thank you guys for coming. We have to actually go to the next meeting. So thank you again. It was great having everyone join us. And thank you for making time. And hopefully we'll see some people in 1 minute or 30 seconds for the other section. So thank you guys for coming. And good seeing you all. Good seeing you, Bastion.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Take
Thanks for
care.
having me, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.